May our Father, Messiah, and the Holy Spirit be with us. Genesis chapter 41. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when there came up from the river 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. Presently, 7 other cows, gaunt and lean, came up from the river and stood beside the cows on the river bank. The cows that were gaunt and lean devoured the 7 cows that were sleek and fat. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. He saw 7 ears of grain, full and ripe, growing on a single stalk. Springing up after them were 7 other ears, thin and shriveled by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 ears that were full and plump. Then Pharaoh woke up and found it was a dream. In the morning, Pharaoh's mind was so troubled that he summoned all the dream interpreters and wise men of Egypt, and he told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for him. Then Pharaoh's chief cupbearer spoke up. Now I must mention my offenses, he said. Pharaoh was angry with his servants and imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. One night we both had dreams, each requiring its own interpretation. We had with us there a young Hebrew, a slave of the captain of the guard. And when we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us, giving each dream its own interpretation. Things turned out exactly as the dreams had been interpreted to us. I was restored to my post, the other was hanged. Pharaoh thereupon sent for Joseph, and they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon. After he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh, who said to him, I have had a dream which no one can interpret. I have heard that you can interpret any dream you hear. Joseph answered, Not I, but our Father in heaven can give you an answer which will reassure Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to him, In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile when there came up from the river 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows came up that were in poor condition, very gaunt and lean. In all Egypt, I have never seen such gaunt creatures. These lean, gaunt cows devoured the first cows, the 7 fat ones. They were swallowed up, but no one could have told they were in the bellies of the others, which looked just as gaunt as before. Then I woke up. In another dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full and ripe, growing on a single stalk. Springing up after them were 7 other ears, blighted, thin, and shriveled by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 ripe ears. When I spoke to the dream interpreters, no one could tell me the meaning. Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are both the same. Our Father in heaven has told Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears of grain are 7 years. It is all one dream. The 7 lean and gaunt cows that came up after them are the 7 years, and so also are the 7 empty ears of grain blighted by the east wind. There are going to be 7 years of famine. It is as I have told Pharaoh. Our Father in heaven has let Pharaoh see what he is about to do. There are to be 7 years of bumper harvest throughout Egypt. After them will come 7 years of famine, so that the great harvest in Egypt will all be forgotten, and the famine will ruin the country. The good years will leave no trace in the land because of the famine that follows, for it will be very severe. That Pharaoh has dreamed this twice means our Father in heaven is firmly resolved on this plan, and very soon he will put it into effect. Let Pharaoh now look for a man of vision and wisdom, and put him in charge of the country. Pharaoh should take steps to appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the produce of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty. They should collect all food produced in the good years that are coming and put the grain under Pharaoh's control as a store of food to be kept in the towns. This food will be a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine which will come on Egypt. And so the country will not be devastated by famine. The plan commended itself both to Pharaoh and to all his officials. And Pharaoh asked them, "Could we find another man like this, one so endowed with the Spirit of God?" To Joseph he said, "Since our Father in heaven has made all this known to you, no one has your vision and wisdom. You shall be in charge of my household, and all my people will respect your every word. Only in regard to the throne shall I rank higher than you." Pharaoh went on, "I hereby give you authority over the whole land of Egypt." He took off his signet ring and put it on Joseph's finger. He had him dressed in robes of fine linen and hung a gold chain around his neck. He mounted him in his viceroy's chariot, and men cried, "Make way!" before him. Thus Pharaoh made him ruler over all Egypt and said to him, "I am the Pharaoh, yet without your consent will no one lift hand or foot throughout Egypt." Pharaoh named him Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him as his wife Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph's authority extended over the whole of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old at the time he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. When he left the royal presence, he made a tour of inspection through the land. During the 7 years of plenty, when there were abundant harvests, Joseph gathered all the food produced in Egypt, then stored it in the towns, putting in each the food from the surrounding country. He stored the grain in huge quantities. It was like the sand of the sea, so much that he stopped measuring it. It was beyond all measure. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. He named the elder Manasseh, for, he said, "Our Father in heaven has made me forget all my troubles and my father's family." He named the second Ephraim, for, he said, "Our Father in heaven has made me fruitful in the land of my hardships." When the 7 years of plenty in Egypt came to an end, the 7 years of famine began, as Joseph had prophesied. There was famine in every country, but there was food throughout Egypt. When the famine came to be felt through all Egypt, the people appealed to Pharaoh for food, and he ordered them to go to Joseph and do whatever he told them. When the whole land was in grip of famine, Joseph opened all the granaries and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe. The whole world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph. So severe was the famine everywhere. Chapter 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you stand staring at each other? I hear there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us to keep us alive and save us from starving to death." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not let Joseph's brother Benjamin go with them, for fear that he might come to harm. Thus the sons of Israel went with everyone else to buy grain because of the famine in Canaan. Now Joseph was governor of the land, and it was he who sold the grain to all its people. Joseph's brothers came and bowed to the ground before him. And when he saw his brothers, he recognized them, but pretending not to know them, he greeted them harshly. "Where do you come from?" he demanded. "From Canaan to buy food," they answered. Although Joseph had recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. He remembered the dreams he had had about them and said, "You are spies. You have come to spy out the weak points in our defenses." "No, my king," They answered, "Your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." "No," he maintained. "It is to spy out our weaknesses that you have come." They said, "There are 12 of us, my king, all brothers, sons of one man back in Canaan. The youngest is still with our father, and one is lost." But Joseph insisted, "As I have already said to you, you are spies. This is how you will be put to the test. Unless your youngest brother comes here, I swear by the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place. Send one of your number to fetch your brother. The rest of you will remain in prison. Thus your story will be tested to see whether you are telling the truth. If not, then by the life of Pharaoh, you must be spies." With that, he kept them in prison for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do what I say, and your lives will be spared, for I am a God-fearing man. If you are honest men, only one of you brothers shall be kept in prison, while the rest of you may go and take grain for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me. In this way, your words will be proved true, and you will not die." They consented, and among themselves they said, "No doubt we are being punished because of our brother. We saw his distress when he pleaded with us, and we refused to listen. That is why this distress has come on us." Reuben said, "Did I not warn you not to do wrong to the boy? But you would not listen, and now his blood is on our heads, and we must pay." They did not know that Joseph understood, since he had used an interpreter. Joseph turned away from them and wept. Then he went back to speak to them, and took Simeon from among them and had him bound before their eyes. He gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back into his sack again, and to give them provisions for the journey. After this had been done, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and set off. When they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to give feed to his donkey, and there at the top was the silver. He said to his brothers, "My silver has been returned. Here it is in my pack." Bewildered and trembling, they asked one another, "What is this that our Father in heaven has done to us?" When they came to their father Jacob in Canaan, they gave him an account of all that had happened to them. They said, "The man who is king of the country spoke harshly to us and made out that we were spies. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We are not spies.' There were 12 of us, all brothers, sons of the same father. One has disappeared, and the youngest is with our father in Canaan." Then the man, the king of the country, said to us, "This is how I shall discover if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take food for your starving households and go. Bring your youngest brother to me, and I shall know that you are honest men and not spies. Then I shall restore your brother to you, and you can move around the country freely." But on emptying their sacks, each one of them found his silver inside. And when they and their father saw the bundles of silver, they were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, "You have robbed me of my children. Joseph is lost, Simeon is lost, and now you would take Benjamin? Everything is against me." Reuben said to his father, "You may put both my sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Entrust him to me, and I shall bring him back." But Jacob said, "My son must not go with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. Should he come to any harm on the journey, you will bring down my gray hairs in sorrow to the grave." Chapter 43. The famine was still severe in the land. When the grain they had brought from Egypt was all used up, their father said to them, "Go again and buy some more grain for us to eat." Judah replied, "But the man warned us that we must not go into his presence unless our brother was with us. If you let our brother go with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not let him, we cannot go." For the man declared, "You shall not come into my presence unless your brother is with you." Israel said, "Why have you treated me so badly by telling the man that you had another brother?" They answered, "The man questioned us closely about ourselves, and our family. Is your father still alive? He asked. Have you a brother? And we answered his questions. How were we to know he would tell us to bring our brother down? Judah said to Israel, his father, send the boy with me. Then we can start at once and save everyone's life, ours, yours, and those of our children. I shall go surety for him, and you may hold me responsible. If I do not bring him back and restore him to you, you can blame me for it all my life. If we had not wasted all this time, we could have made the journey twice by now. Their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this, and your baggage take, as a gift for the man, some of the produce for which our country is famous, a little balm and honey, with gum trachanath, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you and give back what was returned to you in your packs. Perhaps there was some mistake. Take your brother with you and go straight back to the man. May our Father in heaven make him kindly disposed to you, and may he send back the one whom you left behind, and Benjamin too. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So they took the gift and double the amount of silver, and accompanied by Benjamin, they started at once for Egypt, where they presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his steward, bring these men indoors, then kill a beast and prepare a meal, for they are to eat with me at midday. He brought the men into Joseph's house as he had been ordered. They were afraid because they had been brought there. They thought, we have been brought in here because of that affair of the silver which was replaced in our packs the first time. He means to make some charge against us, to inflict punishment on us, seize our donkeys, and make us his slaves. So they approached Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the door of the house. Please listen, my king, they said. After our first visit to buy food, when we reached the place where we were to spend the night, we opened our packs, and each one of us found his silver, the full amount of it, at the top of his pack. We have brought it back with us, and we have more silver to buy food. We do not know who put the silver in our packs. He answered, calm yourselves. Do not be afraid. It must have been your God, the God of your father, who hid treasure for you in your packs. I did receive the silver. Then he brought Simeon out to them. The steward conducted them into Joseph's house and gave them water to bathe their feet and provided feed for their donkeys. They had their gifts ready against Joseph's arrival at midday, for they had heard that they were to eat there. When he came into the house, they presented him with the gifts which they had brought, bowing to the ground before him. He asked them how they were and said, is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive? Yes, my king, our father is still alive and well, they answered, bowing low in obeisance. When Joseph looked around, he saw his own mother's son, his brother Benjamin, and asked, is this your youngest brother of whom you told me? And to Benjamin he said, may our Father in heaven be gracious to you, my son. Joseph, suddenly overcome by his feelings for his brother, was almost in tears, and he went into the inner room and wept. Then, having bathed his face, he came out and, with his feelings now under control, he ordered the meal to be served. He was served by himself, and the brothers by themselves. The Egyptians who were at the meal were also served separately, for to Egyptians it is abhorrent to eat with Hebrews. When at his direction the brothers were seated, the eldest first and so on down to the youngest, they looked at one another in astonishment. Joseph sent them each a portion from what was before them, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than any of the others, so they feasted and drank with him. Chapter 44. Joseph gave the steward these instructions: fill the men's packs with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's silver at the top of his pack. And put my goblet, the silver one, at the top of the youngest brother's pack, along with the silver for the grain. He did as Joseph had told him. At first light, the brothers were allowed to take their donkeys and set off. But before they had gone very far from the city, Joseph said to his steward, go after these men at once, and when you catch up with them, say, why have you repaid good with evil? Why have you stolen the silver goblet? It is the one my king drinks from, and which he uses for divination. This is a wicked thing you have done. When the steward overtook them, he reported his master's words. But they replied, my king, how can you say such things? Heaven forbid that we should do such a thing. Look, the silver we found at the top of our packs, we brought back to you from Canaan. Why then should we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any one of us is found with the goblet, he shall die. And what is more, my king, the rest of us shall become your slaves. He said, very well, I accept what you say. Only the one in whose possession it is found will become my slave. The rest will go free. Each quickly lowered his pack to the ground and opened it. And when the steward searched, beginning with the eldest and finishing with the youngest, the goblet was found in Benjamin's pack. At this they tore their clothes. Then one and all they loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers arrived, and they threw themselves on the ground before him. Joseph said, what is this you have done? You might have known that a man such as I am uses divination. Judah said, what can we say, my king? What can we plead? Or how can we clear ourselves? God has uncovered our crime. Here we are, my king, ready to be made your slaves, we ourselves as well as the one who was found with the goblet. Heaven forbid that I should do such a thing, Joseph answered. Only the one who was found with the goblet shall become my slave. The rest of you can go home to your father safe and sound. Then Judah went up to him and said, please listen, my king, and let your servant speak a word, I beg. Do not be angry with me, for you are as great as Pharaoh himself. My king, you asked us whether we had a father or a brother. We answered, we have an aged father, and he has a young son born in his old age. This boy's full brother is dead, and since he alone is left of his mother's children, his father loves him. You said to us, your servants, bring him down to me so that I may set my eyes on him. We told you, my king, that the boy could not leave his father. His father would die if he left him. But you said, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall not enter my presence again. We went back to your servant, my father, and reported to him what your kingship had said. So when our father told us to go again and buy food, we answered, we cannot go down, for without our youngest brother, we cannot enter the man's presence. But if our brother is with us, we will go. Then your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left me, and I said, he must have been torn to pieces. I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me as well, and he comes to any harm, then you will bring down my gray hairs in misery to the grave. Now, my king, if I return to my father without the boy, and remember, his life is bound up with the boy's, what will happen is this. He will see that the boy is not with us, and he will die, and your servants will have brought down our father's gray hairs in sorrow to the grave. Indeed, my king, it was I who went surety for the boy to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, then you can blame me for it all my life. Now, my king, let me remain in place of the boy as my king's slave, and let him go with his brothers. How can I return to my father without the boy? I cannot bear to see the misery which my father would suffer. Chapter 45. Joseph was no longer able to control his feelings in front of all his attendants, and he called, let everyone leave my presence. There was nobody present when Joseph made himself known to his brothers, But he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and news of it got to Pharaoh's household. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Can my father be still alive? They were so dumbfounded at finding themselves face to face with Joseph that they could not answer. Joseph said to them, Come closer to me. And when they did so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or blame yourselves for selling me into slavery here. It was to save lives that our Father in heaven sent me ahead of you. For there have now been 2 years of famine in the land, and there will be another 5 years with neither plowing nor harvest. Our Father in heaven sent me on ahead of you to ensure that you will have descendants on the earth and to preserve for you a host of survivors. It is clear that it was not you who sent me here, but our Father in heaven. And he has made me Pharaoh's chief counselor, king over all his household and ruler of all Egypt. Hurry back to my father and give him this message from his son Joseph. Our Father in heaven has made me king of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay. You will live in the land of Goshen and be near me, you, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all that you have. I shall provide for you there and see that you and your household and all that you have are not reduced to want. For there are still 5 years of famine to come. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it really is Joseph himself who is speaking to you. Tell my father of all the honor which I enjoy in Egypt. Tell him all you have seen, and bring him down here with all speed. He threw his arms round his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin too embraced him, weeping. He then kissed each of his brothers and wept over them. After that, his brothers were able to talk with him. When the report reached the royal palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and his officials were pleased. Pharaoh told Joseph to say to his brothers, This is what you must do. Load your beast and go straight back to Canaan. Fetch your father and your households and come to me. I shall give you the best region there is in Egypt, and you will enjoy the fat of the land. He was also to tell them, Take wagons from Egypt for your descendants and for your wives, and fetch your father back here. Have no regret to leaving your possessions, for all the best there is in the whole of Egypt is yours. Israel's sons followed these instructions, and Joseph supplied them with wagons, as Pharaoh had ordered, and provisions for the journey. To each of them he gave new clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 sets of clothes. Moreover, he sent his father 10 donkeys carrying the finest products of Egypt, and 10 she-donkeys laden with grain, bread, and other provisions for the journey. He sent his brothers on their way, warning them not to quarrel among themselves on the road. They set off and went up from Egypt to their father Jacob in Canaan. When they told him that Joseph was still alive and was ruler of the whole of Egypt, he was stunned at the news and did not believe them. However, when they reported to him all that Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the wagons which Joseph had provided to fetch him, his spirit revived. Israel said, It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I shall go and see him before I die. Father willing, we will continue with Genesis chapter 46. May our Father, Messiah, and the Holy Spirit be with us. Repent, the kingdom of heaven is near. Peace.